Proud Boys members in hate crime investigation after drag queen story hour with children. Watch this.
Video posted online shows a group who investigators say may be linked to the far-right Proud Boys organization inside the San Lorenzo Public Library. The library was hosting a drag queen story hour Saturday, part of their Pride Month events, when several protesters showed up. Cindy Chadwick, the county librarian, was there.
They began insulting and otherwise verbally abusing our performer.
The performer was Panda Dolce, seen in this picture reading at an event at the San Francisco MoMA. In a series of tweets, she described what happened. She wrote they yelled and called her names, including a pedophile and an it. She said it totally freaked out all of the kids. They got right in our faces. They jeered.
It was all in front of the children, and it frightened them. I've been in libraries for over 20 years, and I've never seen anything with this kind of vitriol and hate.
Librarians called the sheriff's office. Deputies arrived and escorted the group out. The Alameda County Sheriff's Office is now investigating this incident as a hate crime. In a news release, Lieutenant Ray Kelly wrote, ACSO will dedicate all resources to ensure the safety of members of our LGBTQ community. We will make sure any future events at the library are safe against hate speech and threats of violence.
After a drag queen story hour at the San Lorenzo Library in California was interrupted by a group of 5 men shouting homophobic and transphobic slurs, the Alameda County Sheriff's Office is investigating them for hate crimes. The Sheriff's Office said in a press release, quote, a group of 5 men entered the library and disrupted the reading event. The men were described as members of the Proud Boys organization, known to be a right-wing hate group with anti-LGBTQ affiliations. The men began to shout homophobic and transphobic slurs at the event organizer. The men were described as extremely aggressive with a threatening, violent demeanor, causing people to fear for their safety. As we celebrate Pride Month, we will be swift in our response to any incidents where there are threats to harm members of this community.
Wow.
I think it's really horrible what happened, but you know, I was starting to think about what constitutes a hate crime and freedom of speech. That's kind of where my mind went with it. Of course, we all can agree that it was, you know, it's a horrible thing, but to call it a hate crime, when does it cross the line with freedom of speech is my question.
Well, I think calling the Proud Boys a hate group is underestimating that they are a terrorist organization that tried to overthrow the government. So let's call them what they actually are, a terrorist organization. And now they're threatening children in a library.
And their rhetoric is fueled by the same type of damaging conversations or quotes or politics that DeSantis is putting out. Those statements against like, for example, don't say gay. Telling people that calling us groomers. We have been getting, I was telling Jeff this, we've been getting at Pride Lines hate voicemails using that harmful and hateful language, calling us pedophiles, calling us groomers, calling us sickos, and far worse than that.
Wait, I haven't heard this, and I want to make sure I understand what you just said. So Pride Lines, which is an organization here, a nonprofit 501c3 here in South Florida, that is designed to provide service, counseling, mental health, et cetera, and so on, for LGBTQ young people in South Florida. You're getting hate and threat, and you're making the connection. It's because of all of the political discourse that's going on.
Absolutely. And the language that they're using is almost word for word what's coming out of the mouth of our governor or his staff, other politicians around the country.
You're executive director of Pride Lines. Has there been a focused conversation yet about how you're going to respond to the hate? Emails and phone calls or messaging, that's still threatening, and they may have the speech right to do it. But have you? Are y'all starting to formulate a plan of how you're going to respond to it, or what you're going to do about it, or evaluate? Do we have risk, or do we feel that there's danger? What's Pride Line's response to this?
Well, I mean, as a community center, our first priority is the safety of the people we serve and creating a space that's also affirming. So we're constantly having conversations and receiving, you know, hateful mail has never been, you know, it's always been part of the history and the work. But to this degree, and with the frequency and with the language that's being used in voicemails, This is new, and so we're constantly having conversations, changing our practices, our policies, in order to make sure that our space remains safe for our young people in our community.
You know, we have a completely different environment going on because, of course, we're approaching Stonewall Pride on Saturday. I'll be broadcasting on the main stage of the parade and the lead up to the parade. But like what happened in Coeur d'Alene over the weekend in Idaho, and white supremacists come from 12 different states to cram themselves like the Keystone Cops into a U-Haul truck to disrupt the pride. And who knows how that ends up in terms of the violence. Or 5 Proud Boys to go in front of children in a public library where you can see the librarian go, I've never seen anything like this. And then I hear what you're saying is happening at Pride Lines. Something is occurring in America that is very dangerous, and it's being caused by something. And it seems like the rhetoric that is going on is causing.
And Tony, back to what you're saying about free speech, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't, free speech is that's one of the main, that's American, But to walk into a space and disrupt what's going on when there are children involved and scaring them by doing what they did, that's, great, there's free speech, but when you're coming into my space with the intentions of just disrupting what's happening and quite frankly, scaring the bejesus out of these kids, no, that's when I think the whole free speech thing, no.
Well, I think what I'm referencing more is the difference between like a public disturbance and like that kind of a crime or violation as opposed to a hate crime. And I think that becomes like a pretty blurry line, just like the Supreme Court. When we have the people protesting out there, I'm sure in their perspective, this is a violent, threatening mob that's outside. So do you call that in the ballpark of hate? Or
well, I mean, I think, Al, you've used this many times on the show. If we were to insert that it was a black person reading story to children and the KKK showed up, we would say that it was a threatening, potential hate crime. Yeah. And it is the same type of format that we're facing in the LGBTQ community.
And it's interesting to that point. If it was a black church, I don't think that there would be any issue that FBI, for example, would say, no, this is a hate crime and we're investigating. The conclusion might be what you're suggesting, but they would investigate it. If this was a Jewish synagogue as opposed to a public library, there is no question the FBI would investigate this as a hate crime against religious diversity, minority of being Jewish. I think the broader issue here is what I'm suggesting and why, Victor, what you say brings me to a complete stop. We're watching a situation that we watched in Coeur d'Alene. We're watching political leaders that are not, their speech is to demean and demoralize. The claim of groomers is a dog whistle. They're blowing a dog whistle. It's the same thing that we're watching over the January 6th Capitol hearings of, did the President of the United States blow a dog whistle to create radical individuals from to attack the Capitol? That is still to be decided, but we see parallels here. And now I hear even in our own local community, you're starting to experience that. Before something dangerous really happens, I think that there should be lots of conversation about, we're watching a new phenomenon and trying to figure out exactly what is happening. And I believe our next story actually really discusses that.
LGBTQ+ news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure the growth of the entire LGBTQ+